So, first step of building your own LCA is gathering information, and there's a few routes to building to where you can take the information from. I like to start off with what we call the project detail request form, and it's a spreadsheet that I'll bring up in a sec, where we just look through, lay out all the information that's required. To get that information, we can first look at the normal information provided, often by the architect. For the green guide, that will contain quite a lot of the details that we need: wall areas and types, roof areas and types, etc. But not everyone has that info, and not every architect has got the time to provide it. Other routes are to use a BIM model. If the BIM model is available, you'll be able to output a lot of the areas, roof types, and info needed straight from the BIM model. There will often be a cost plan. There'll almost always be a cost plan, and a lot of the information needed for a life cycle assessment study is also contained in the cost plan, certainly in the initial construction of the construction cost plan. And the other alternative, excuse me, is to take a manual materials takeoff. Quite often, it will take just as long to try and get this information from architects, and they'll provide it in the wrong way and not quite what you're after. Sometimes it's quite easier, especially if the project's under time pressures, just to go into the drawings and manually measure up the window areas, the floor areas, the roof areas. Sometimes this is done for thermal modeling purposes anyway, resi and commercial buildings. Often, quicker to spend a few hours getting the information you need manually. But these other options can also be useful to consolidate that. So I'm just going to jump into the project detail request, if I can. Here's an example here. And this is a project detail request done for an impact LCA. And what you see here is green and blue, like elements of the building that need to be included for impact. So green, they need to be specific to the project and measured up in terms of the actual quantities and areas. So, standard foundations, they need to have the actual quantity of concrete for the piling. In this case, we have a concrete pile, 300 mil diameter, 2% reinforcement, and there's 10 piles running half the building deep. So I've got a total there of 150 meters piles, and that's good information that I can use to load up into find the templates in eTool. The blue elements are things where impact will accept information that's aggregated. So you might have concrete casings on a steel frame. You don't need to go out and measure the volume and the areas of these casings. You can aggregate that into a template, make some estimations. Likewise, with the roof structure, roof coverings, we can aggregate these things within our templates and remain impact compliant. The other ones here are optional. We don't have to include them if we don't want to for an impact compliant LCA, but sometimes worth including anyway, just for our own interest. So we start to gather this information either from a bill of quantities, or maybe just measured up from some drawings. You might have your plans here. This is quite a simple convenience store, and easy enough, in this case, got a simple building to measure up these different wall types and different areas, the doors, maybe there's some windows in there, the floor areas, different finishes, and drop those areas into the spreadsheet here. I'll also want to be looking at this alongside my details drawings, or maybe just on the telephone to the architect, just say, okay, what have you got here? It's a double brick or it's brick and block with plasterboard finish and 150 mil insulation. Generally, the architect will know, will be able to provide that straight away. But you can also look at it alongside documentation, like the details drawings, where you can, this one's quite nice and clear. Okay, we've got 100 mil bricks, pretty standard. We've got some cool firm insulation there. We've got some silicate board, some Metzec, so steel studs essentially, and some plasterboard and insulation there, double layer plasterboard. So that's the kind of information that I need, the thickness of the materials and the type. Right? All of these thicknesses are pretty standard. I want to make a note though of the insulation thickness, which is going to obviously change. So I'll write down these kind of notes in the spreadsheet here, ready to transfer into my e-tool model alongside the quantities. As you do your first LCA, obviously it can take a bit more time, but as you get used to the kind of templates that are available and what you need for your project, you can build up this information request form very quickly. Sometimes if you've got a nice proactive architect, they can even do this for you. It all depends on how engaged they are in the process and whether they've got that kind of feed to help you out with your LCA as well. So that's the information gathering. Yeah, manual effort often actually quicker than get someone else to do it who's not going to do it the way that provide the information that you need essentially. But yeah, we can take outputs from the 3D model, which will also be very useful from bills of quantities. So this is a bill of quantities. Actually, this is an output from a 3D model for a very large commercial building, and they gave us each of these schedules. Beam schedule. All we had to do was sum the total quantity of beams here in terms of meter cubed from the schedule. We had a column schedule. Likewise, we had all of these columns. We don't need to load these up separately. The main thing that we're interested in terms of this beams and columns is the quantities of material, the concrete and the reinforcement that's going into these elements. And likewise, foundations, stairwells, wall schedules, a few different wall types there, just summing them up and making some notes of what's included in these schedules that I'm going to need to match my templates to later on in the modeling. You'll get similar schedules available from cost plans. They'll often have quantities of materials as well laid out for you, and another useful